Hello, everyone. I hope you can all hear us. I'm Thibaut, co-founder of Numbly with Easily Cost, and it's a great pleasure today to welcome Domitille. Hello, Domitille.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
A great pleasure for us. So today we will speak with two top guns at Numbly, Hélène, a marketing freak, and Luca, Martecchi. And we will together interview you, Domitille, with a great pleasure. So welcome everyone to this brand retailer series, which is a new series of hopefully top-notch, groundbreaking, disruptive webinars that we intend to organize at Numbly on some of the hottest topics around brand retailer relationships. So in this series, we will cover both media, but also insights, and not only from the brand perspective, but also from the retailer or the tech partner perspectives. Why we do this? Because we believe at Numbly that the evolution of brand retailer relationships is a critical new age for data and digital marketing. Maybe as important as search, as social marketing or CRM, but also for media, for insights and marketing in general. So there is already a momentum in this space, and we will shortly discuss this with Domitille, with obviously the fast growth of Amazon. But there is much more to come, and there is a huge work to do, obviously, to share the best practices, set the standards, define the right concepts, and also measure in a better way than what is being done today. A question of harmonization, and also a big issue of reducing costs and optimizing performance to build the standards. So to kick off this brand retailer series, we are honored to welcome you, Domitille, Chief Digital Officer of Danone. So welcome. It's a great pleasure to have you. We were supposed to have you physically in our offices a couple of months ago. Obviously, because of the situation, we had to postpone, and it's great to do it today. So to introduce you quickly, Domitille, you before being appointed as the CDO of Danone a couple of years ago, I think you lived in China. You worked in the tech space with Cisco. You lived, you know the video game industry also with Ubisoft, and you've recently been appointed as a board member by the Carlsberg Group, so in the beer industry. You are a world-class expert in consumer goods and digital. It sounds always when we meet you that you have several lives going on. You are skiing, you are traveling. You are indeed one of the most frequent travelers I know. And I guess it must have been quite a change, the recent crisis for your mileage status. You will tell us about it. So just to start with our first question, this morning in an interview to Les Echos, Jean-Paul Agon, L'Oréal CEO, declared that he said that because of the masks, consumers didn't buy lipsticks recently. So what about Danone products, Domitille? Can you tell us a little bit more about whether people ate more yogurts when they were stuck at home during this incredible lockdown period?
Yes, for sure. I think I'm not going to really like a breakthrough information that the food and beverage industry has been in a lot of stretch during the period because of stockpiling, obviously behaviors, the booming of e-com. And I think that was an opportunity in a very humble way to serve as much as we could the retail landscape or DtoC landscape, but also e-commerce and pure players. And that's not a walk in the park. It's been a stretch on the supply chain as never before, and it's been a stretch on our suppliers. So we truly hope this is behind us in most of the countries, because that's a humanly there is a cost to that.
Absolutely. So this first chapter for us today is really to look at how the Danone Group navigated the COVID-19 crisis. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about some of the impacts for the Danone Group, and whether you saw any change in your typical product performance. For instance, I think something interesting happened with early life nutrition products in China.
So there are people who are very much more qualified than I am in the Danone Group to give the perspective of the whole crisis. I'm going to concentrate on what is my field and what I know. It's been interesting to see how brands have been privileged, and some legacy brands have been privileged by consumers. So there is a trust, back to credibility and trust point. Emmanuel Faber most of the time speaks a lot about the discrepancy of trust in between big, huge company and consumers. And in that time period, legacy brands have come back into favor for very good reason, but also for reasons that we need to make sustainable in the way we work. China is always very interesting for us because there is a constant premiumization in China. And even during the COVID, this phenomenon of going for high-end product for kids still was maintained. There is a prioritization in the way people have bought food and made their choice into more premium product, high quality, local product, which is extremely interesting to look at. And in China, it's sustainable. So people were even piling formula milk, which is something that you understand because it's very emotional. But it's also the proof point that they go for the brand they trust. And building trust and relevancy is probably even more in the agenda than ever before. You don't have a second chance. You really, when people are piling up and they put a lot of their money into a specific food, you have no way. You don't have even a minute to disappoint. Services, product experience, packaging, consumer relationship management after the purchase needs to be stellar. So it's bringing back, and I love that, it's bringing back net promotion score, consumer promotion score as key KPI to be obsessed with. It's you see, so that's also a good reboot, a good refocus.
Great. Yeah, that's great you say this, because actually I was going to quote P&G's CFO, John Mueller, who recently said, it is not a time to retrench for brands. It's not a time to go off air, but rather a time of opportunity, a time to double down on brand visibility, a time for a marketing reset. So very close pretty much to what you're saying about the reboot. Did you also try to take advantage and double down on brand visibility, a bit like what P&G just said?
In e-commerce, yes, very much so. Also because Danone is very much aware of how the new retail is working, meaning online to offline is very much in the agenda. What you experience online on your brands and on an e-com website, retailer.com, pure player, delivery services, you name it, is going to impact considerably and more during the time of confinement, your behavior offline. Because you didn't have time to stay that long in the shops anyway. So you had an even bigger influence on the e-com, even if you were not converting online sometimes. So we have doubled down in the visibility, on the quality of what we were delivering on e-com, very much so, yes. Then not all the brand could afford to go massively on air because obviously we, there are some constraints financially, but if we had a priority to make, it was on the e-com landscape.
Great. Thank you, Domitille. So the first topic we really wanted to look at today was this food revolution that you and your CEO Emmanuel Faber, you mentioned previously, have been quite vocal about. So I think it's a great topic to start with. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about this food revolution, how you see it, and maybe whether it was impacted by the recent crisis.
So again, I think Emmanuel and many members of the COMEX are way more qualified to speak about the food revolution than I am. But on my specific field, I think this is very much about trust, and it's very much about the capacity to deliver a no bullshit message and a no bullshit product information to our consumers. I see when I look at some data, a significant amount of time spent on product information, probably double time versus what I had when I arrived in Danone. Whether it's on our own website, which are not the best source of traffic, as you can imagine, but very much so in e-commerce. We see the time spent on product information doubling almost every 2 years. This is a massive shift, meaning that you are going to spend time on a kind of commoditized product, because honestly, we are not selling Chanel bag. They still spend time to take care of understanding. And that's completely cross-generational now, on understanding what we are putting on our packaging, we are putting inside our packaging. And this is a massive revolution. It doesn't mean that obesity is off in the world. It doesn't mean that everyone has a healthy basket, but it means that the consciousness of what is important is rising up. And it's going to go very soon to where does this product come from? Is the soil that you've been harvesting the product from exhausted? Are you making sure that the generative agriculture is part of your ecosystem? Never underestimate the fast track consumers are having into understanding key things at stake. And it's hard to keep this space of transparency, because basically the data are not always completely available, but this is a massive focus for Danone. It's a massive priority. We will not let people down on this one.
Yeah,
and that's a massive concern.
Thank you, Domitille. It is critical, for us in the marketing and tech space to work for companies that do have a mission. I've heard that on your next shareholders meeting, you might become a company with an official mission according to the Loi Pacte in France, and for us it gives a lot of sense and meaning also working for you in this space. So you talked about transparency, you talked about data, very interestingly about your product and this food revolution. That's a great transition to move to actually data marketing, which also requires high value transparency and high value data. So my question here would be: we heard a lot about the tribes. Everyone has heard about the Danone approach of tribes, and it's a very innovative strategy. Maybe you could explain us what's your vision on the tribes, and whether there's a link with this food revolution, maybe because of the diversity of new food behaviors.
That's exactly that. I think Thibaut, you said the sentence. Thank you for saying it. There is something in Danone that we are really, really fervent believers in the digital landscape, is that going for the common denominator on people is going for the lowest common denominator. And if there is something that is very damageable, is going for the lowest common denominator. And you bombard people with commonalities, and you don't respect consumers when you do so. So there is a very intense work done by many different teams and different capabilities within Danone to really define food behaviors, basket behaviors, path to purchase behaviors on beverage and food habits. It goes from RNI to activation, down to activation in digital, and those behaviors have been statistically clustered under tribes. You can, as an individual, belong to many tribes, and hopefully so, because otherwise you're a very monolithic person. So it's not an exclusive work. At Danone, we have at the moment 57 tribes, which are very much updated every week almost, because again, it's real-time data that we are activating, and it's providing us a pulse and a sense of proximity with consumers, which is very interesting. It's almost a new way of consumer relationship management, to have the feedback real time on how people are actually reacting to reason to buy, insight, and also the way they are moving their basket into a different type of purchase. I would never say that a brand is here to influence people behaviors. I think this is a very old-fashioned way of seeing how brands are activating. But I do like the fact that when we activate 5, 10 tribes for a campaign, first we have a level of reach which is making us relevant, because we are acting on qualified reach and not on blindly bombarding people to actually make sure that at one point they think about us when they are on shelf. And I like this approach because it's an approach which is a finger on the pulse of the consumers, and which is providing a lot of contradiction. And this is when you handle contradiction that you start to be creative as a company and relevant, because people are full of contradiction. Companies are full of contradiction, and being able to humbly work on this so that you address those contradictions, but you serve people first, is extremely interesting. We've seen return on investment when we activate people's behaviors on food in a very relevant way. We've seen uplift, significant uplift. So it's for us a way to constantly acquire, because let's not fool ourselves here. It's exhausting to be on a CPG, because every morning you need to acquire more consumers and you're losing consumers. And that frame of tribes is creating a sense of excellence in execution to the team, because they know who they are addressing to, and they know what are the KPI, which are making sure that what they are doing is actually relevant and making sense, but also delivering value at the end of the day. So you are not anymore with a black box, hoping for the best, delivering tons of money to the market, but waiting for a post-mortem, which is, by the way, more mortems than post, to know if it worked or not.
Very interesting. When we hear you, Domitille, it really sounds, after 20 years of digital marketing, I must say, with Normally, that CPG with this approach finally, I should say, or at last, really leverages the potential of digital. So now the question is always the how, and what kind of challenges. So we wanted to move to the next section here about precision marketing, and we always like in this case to have a thought for John Wanamaker, this US retailer from the end of the 19th century, who I think very thoroughly described the issue so many retailers and brands have faced over the years. And he said, half the money I spent on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. So we all know this, but it's good to remind this and all try to remember and challenge ourselves whether we are any better now, and we like to look at the different ages over the years of precision marketing. We typically say, and I'd like your reaction on this, that there was a first age where people really try to optimize brand lift, and of course it continues, and this is the age of digital media. There was the data lift period with a key focus on acquiring data by brands, and now maybe we've moved and and you will comment on this, to this precision marketing age, where the sales lift is now almost possible to collect.
Yes. You want me to react on that, Thibaut?
That would be fantastic. Your vision on maybe of precision marketing after describing the tribes. What kind of connection you make from the tribes to the precision marketing?
So it's the core of the precision marketing. So I want first to make sure that everyone is not looking at precision as narrow. Precision is expansion. Okay, because you are precise, you reach more qualified audience, and you reach audience which have a higher intent to enter your category and come to your brand or competitive brand, by the way. So I hope we are not back to Procter & Gamble 7 years ago, which was saying by over-targeting, I'm not reaching, because that was 7 years ago. This bot I sold. Where I think there is a very interesting shift to precision marketing, which is activating tribes with different reasons to buy and having the real-time data telling you if they're actually interesting or not into what you're saying. And sometimes it's a brutal reality check. They are not. And this is a moment that you stop wasting, because that's the first step of the discussion is, I know I'm going to still waste, because that's the trauma of the industry. There is waste in media, and there will keep on being waste. However, having a waste for 2 weeks and having a waste for 8 weeks is a completely different storytelling in terms of efficiency and uplift. So I know almost after 3 days what is working and what is not working. I can even automatize without touching the data and the asset, doubling down on what works and removing from the system what's not working. I don't even need to have 10 FTE doing that. It can be completely automatized within the programmatic ecosystem. Not doing it is a question mark. Why on earth would you wait 8 weeks to actually double down on what is working? It's always a question I'm asking to my agencies or to people internally, is that why are we waiting 24 hours more? This is dead. We need to shift. So automating that is quite interesting, because then you can end up spending way more time into something which I find totally fascinating, which was happening only in China 3 years ago. When you were with Alibaba or Lazada in China, they were not even listening to you before you give the weight of your brand. And the weight of your brand is the traffic your brand is generating for conversion. It's not the market share of your brand. It's the traffic that you are able to generate for conversion. And that's the only discussion you were having with Alibaba. And now you start to have this conversation with many other actors. In the US, Walmart is only speaking like that when we speak data with them. And I love that, because that makes me feel that I will be able, and I'm able in 1/3 of the world, and I will be able in 2/3 of the world, probably before the end of 2020, to know real time that the tribes I'm activating, are they actually converting? Not only online, also offline. So the reality of O2O, the reality of real-time conversion monitoring is now. It's not something which is alien to the Alibaba of this world. You can do it in France, you can do it in Spain, you can do it in Mexico as we speak. And you cannot move away from this reality, and you cannot say, "Oh my God, this is data science. I'm gonna externalize that to the agency and hoping for that they are activating those things." No, you need to really sharply understand that to accurately not waste money too long.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't obviously agree more, and that leads us to the section, the quick section we wanted to have with Hélène Garès. I introduced earlier. Hélène, could you show us how retailer data help reconcile precision and reach, as Domitille just explained?
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. So if we go to the case that we wanted to show you, I think it will answer also lots of things that you said, Domitille. We discussed a lot about the huge work around the tribes, and we quickly noticed some needs, as you said, to take the precision marketing to a next level. So the first one, as you mentioned, is to be able to target people based on their consumption behavior and not only lifestyle anymore. The second, you also talked about retracing the path to purchase, so being able to retrace an individual from an ad exposure to the final purchase, whether it's online or offline. And the third one, as you mentioned, is to be able to optimize your media campaigns based on real-time transactions, both online and offline. And that one is really especially innovative because when we talk about CPG products today, still the majority of sales come through offline channels. I know maybe the crisis will change that and definitely will have an impact on the online consumption, but it is still a reality. So in 4 steps, what the case was about is first, as I said, recreating the tribes for Activia with accurate transactional data. So it means translating a lifestyle behavior into purchase behavior. So maybe to give a concrete example, what does it mean in terms of purchase to be in a tribe called digestive well-being, for example? Then once we did that, we activated those tribes in a multi-channel protocol. So we use 2 platforms here, Google DV360 and Facebook. And for each of those 6 tribes, we delivered a personalized message. What's interesting in personalization in this type of multi-channel activation is that although we target individuals on several platforms, we are able to identify them at an individual level. And we can show them the same message wherever we find them. So whether we find them on Facebook or on Google, we know that they are one single individual and there is no more dissonance in the message. And finally, we were able to measure on a daily and weekly basis, both at media KPI level and sales KPI level, and to optimize that strategy on the go for each tribe. And when we talked about measure here, we measured the incremental impact thanks to a control group to remove natural purchases from the equation and really understand the impact of the campaign itself. So thanks to real-time purchasing data, as I said, we were able to perform in-flight optimization, and we did that on 3 levers. The first one was the budget allocation per platform, depending on the performances, the commercial pressure at the individual level and not at the cookie level anymore, and also the reach, because as you said, precision and reach are not opposed. And in this case, we actually want to maximize the reach on target because we know that we identified the right target and the right individual to push a message to. So the idea is really to try to contact those persons. And if we look at the next slide, actually, when we talk about recreating the right targets, we can see that for this case, we had a lot of potential from the retailer's database. We only selected 13%. But out of those 13%, we managed to generate 34% of total buyers. And those 34 total buyers, they actually generated 44% of the whole total sales. So transaction-based targeting really allows to predict future sales and to know who your targets are. So maximizing the reach on those individuals are really important. Now, if we look at the incremental impact, as I said that we measured that on the go and at the end of the campaign, we were able to notice 4 areas where the campaign was effective. The first one was in terms of online visits on the retailer's website. Individuals who were exposed to the campaign actually visited 22% more the retailer's websites than non-exposed individuals. Then, if we look at the incremental conversion rates, so meaning consumers who actually buy, when they were exposed, they converted 8% more. And they actually also generated more turnover. So exposed individual, they generated 25% more turnover than non-exposed individuals. And last but not least, if we look at the online conversion, we noticed that there was a great increment of 17% of exposed consumers who bought more online. So on that note, I will give the mic back to Domitille maybe to express her thoughts on this. Thank you.
Well, I think the figures speak for themselves. The beauty of this is that we had your support, guys, so we could actually react extremely fast on what was not working and what was working. It was a case in France where the team is extremely digitally advanced also, so it's securing both in terms of reactivity and outcome, a good outcome in a way, because what you have to, there is two sentences you said, Hélène, which are very important. We are not targeting cookies. So for the experts around the table today, it's a very important change. It's a very important shift, moving away for the cookie pool, which is extremely disputable in terms of quality, is fundamental in terms of CPG efficiency in this landscape and digital effectiveness. And it's not difficult now to do so. It's not an easy walking in the park thing, but it's not unreachable. The second thing, which is extremely important, is that there is absolutely no way you don't generate an uplift, because you only work on maximizing reach and maximizing acquisition to a lower cost on populations which are reacting and which were absolutely not frequent buyers or loyalists, even if this word is completely outdated now. So it's important to know that it's there is no failure to that. There is a cost of doing, which is significant. So you need to maximize your ROI or every day, but there is absolutely no way that you're going to fail, except if your brands are completely irrelevant, and that's a good signal, or your content is appalling bad. But even when you have an appallingly bad content, and we know that we have examples sometimes in many CPG, it still actually delivers value. So you can transcend, in a way, the creative trap.
Thank you, Domitille. It's actually fascinating to hear you about this idea of moving away from cookie pool. It's still a long way when you look at the industry in general, but those cases and speeches like yours actually play such a great role in pushing the whole industry forward. So my next question, Domitille, would be which evolution, based on the case we saw and the many others, tests and actions, real actions that you are running throughout the world, which evolution do you see for CPGs leveraging retailer data? In other words, what's next for precision marketing?
So by retailer data, we are speaking about very powerful DSPs available in the market. Walmart DSP, Amazon DSP are extremely powerful DSP. So it is separated also something that has an impact, which is a trade term. So it's really working in the media environment of the retailers, which is making us more agile, faster than the traditional landscape of negotiation. And by doing so, you actually need a more tech, and excuse me for the acronym, but you need a tech environment which is extremely robust. First, because you are dealing with data and consumer data, so we are not speaking here at all lightly. But at the same time, you need a safe environment for your campaigns to be performing, respecting consumer data, but also for your brands to be secured. So the SaaS environment, the clean room environment, which is not a tech word, it's something that everyone who has a 2 minutes of marketing background should understand what a clean room is. Otherwise, you have a problem of recruitment. It's extremely important that these clean rooms are activated to the maximum of their capabilities, meaning that it cannot be what we have been living for the last 10 years in the digital industry, which is a coup. And excuse my French, it's a coup. I'm activating campaign, hoping for being as efficient as I can if I am digitally savvy, but I have a short-term memory disorder. And those clean rooms are here to prevent the short-term memory disorder, meaning that the company, the brands are becoming extremely almost like a machine of reach because of the accumulation of campaign. It's an ongoing learning animal you're creating. And that's very, very, very interesting. And that's the next step for precision marketing, is that I am operating in clean rooms where the retailer's data and my data for media, I'm not speaking about shopper data per se, are extremely learning at every campaign, every step of the way. And you can actually end up, it's like an aquarium where you can actually target fish depending on the direction they go. And you can do it real time because you are in this safe environment. This aquarium is a safe environment. Building up capabilities internally to activate that with partners on the retail side, partners on the agency side, partners with the data side, but having this backbone internally is fundamental for I think for the future of the brand.
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks for mentioning the fact that clean rooms should be understood by everyone. We actually will have a short session on this right after, but to wrap up this conversation and open up for questions, I wanted to get back to tomorrow's challenges. As we all saw, there was a huge growth in e-commerce. For some people, we did in 3 months what it took 10 years to build as far as e-commerce penetration before. We also saw more recently some data showing that people, of course, were not continuing at this pace to shop online. There is a sharp reduction in the growth, but still, if you see this chart here on the right, there is still in May and very recent data a huge difference with what it was last year and the year before. So our question here would be, what was the impact for Danone of this e-commerce growth, incredible e-commerce growth, and did that shift your vision for e-com and DtoC?
So it made my life easier. I must admit that, when you leapfrog three years ahead, you're not anymore like the type of dogmatic person saying the disruption on e-commerce is arrived, guys. It's basically in a week time, it's here, and even countries which were extremely low in penetration, like Russia, I've seen an enormous burst. So you leapfrog a company 3 years ahead. And I agree with you, the stickiness is going to be quite impressive because it's still going to be a 3-point penetration versus what we had, 3 to 6 point, which is making e-com the very significant contributor of growth. We are speaking above most of the time 1/4 of the growth coming for e-com on CPG. For L'Oréal, for CPG which are in the cosmetic industry, it can go up to 60% of the growth, 70% of the growth. So the function of e-com becomes almost the growth generator of the brand. And that's the reason why the shift is happening so fast, is that brand marketers understand that if e-com is the lowest common denominator or is your weak point, your brand experience is becoming as good as your e-com experience. And this is fundamental because it is not a sales channel. It's way more than that. It's where the traffic of your brand, the quality of your brand, the quality of your advocacy, of your net promotion score is shining out. So it's crucial for the brand to take it almost as a priority. If I were a brand product manager today, I would be obsessed with how my brand look like on e-com. I would be obsessed. I would not even start a TV campaign without this being perfect. That's the shift we are operating right now.
Very clear. There was an interesting interview in the Financial Times earlier this week of Lubomira Rocher from L'Oréal, who shared some spectacular rising e-commerce sales that you can see here, and she also mentioned. So I think L'Oréal reached, they say, 20% of their revenues coming from their own brand websites or from those online retailers such as the one you mentioned, Amazon or Walmart. while she says Unilever is at 8% on their first quarter and Nestle at 10%. More importantly, probably because you have differences from industries to the other, as you said. She says we are setting ourselves up for a world where half of the business is e-com, and 80% of consumer interactions will happen online. Do you see that shift as well in your industry?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know about the figures. I'm not sure we will be 50% of the business on food, because there is a pleasure also to go shopping for food, as you can imagine. But yes, absolutely. And the reason why I'm confident about this is that it's totally transgenerational after the confinement. It used to be the appanage of, I don't know what exactly it means, but millennials. It's not at all. You have a completely transgenerational attitude to, I am going to discover brand online. Maybe I'm going to buy them there or not, but at least I'm going to discover them here. And when you have a discussion with Amazon on fresh, their conversion is pretty low. They are still not completely there on fresh. But the traffic of the fresh brand on Amazon is crazy. So you need to be where the traffic is. That's the obsession at the end of the day. And this is where the traffic is rising up. That's why Tmall has been so instrumental in the survival of some brands in the CPG industry during confinement in China. Those who were completely fluent with Tmall and understanding that it's not because you are converting low in Tmall sometimes that you shouldn't be stellar there, won the market, won the race. So it's sometimes important to disconnect the weight in conversion of the channel of how much it is important in the process decision of the consumers. And the more we're going to grow, the more this correlation is going to happen. But at the moment, it's really much a traffic generator, which is impressive. I've seen figures on Amazon Fresh of traffic, which are unprecedented. And if your brands are not there, somebody else is.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I would like now to turn to Luca, whom I introduced earlier on, our techie today here. But as you said, tech should be accessible and understood by everyone. So Luca, how do the latest advances in technology address the issue of trust between brands and retailers?
Yeah, hello Thibaut, hello Domitille, hello everyone. So as you saw in the Danone case and Domitille, you mentioned trust a lot. So this trustful and transparent collaboration, win-win collaboration with retailers, it comes out as premises of a new martech landscape and paradigm. So if we come back to several years ago, since digital marketing's infancy in the early 2000s, the idea of a secured place where marketing specialists can bring their data together and leverage it, it has existed and it has matured. And as the time went, recently the acceleration in several trends, including regulation and the need for transparency, it has brought bright light to the concept of clean rooms, as you mentioned, Domitille. So let's open the box, because it's not a black box, as you said, of this concept of clean rooms. So a clean room is a combination of tech, you mentioned it, so it's a secure platform with sensitive data, but it's also marketing, with the key concept of intermediation and trusted third-party partner, because you need to commingle data. And it lays on 3 building blocks. It's very important to understand. It's data sharing between 2 or more parties. It's based on an existing ecosystem, because you need to have interoperability with a common currency, which is not cookies, and connectivity. And you need to find a granular and smart balance between trust and control. And that is made possible by technology and by the intermediation. And thanks to that, you can do 3 things: targeting and insights on this data, omnichannel activation, and measure. And the measure is based on true incrementality, so you can really know the impact of what you do. So many people here might wonder how we do that. So here you can see and imagine many configurations of clean rooms. Here is a quite exhaustive scheme of the possibilities of data sharing. You can see the different protagonists, retailers, brands, media publishers, or platforms. Each of them is bringing their data to the clean room. so that the crossings and matching can be made. And then only the trusted third party has access to the data in the clean room in order to analyze and activate for the brand. So in this context, clean rooms may coincide with a paradigm shift, as you said earlier, Domitille. They could bring first true business impact for marketers, and this is key. Second, they could ensure privacy compliance by design, and we need it. And third, it could give back power to independent entities through data sovereignty. So Thibaut and everyone, back to the question to conclude, this technology shift could lay the basis of a win-win-win situation and a true opportunity to serve a vision of omni-channel relationship marketing with an ecosystem that enables relevant, transparent, and measurable interaction between several entities who are partners and in respect of the consumer.
Thank you very much, Luca. I think it was enlightening, and we have a couple of questions. We'll get back to them in a moment. But maybe Domitille, you want to quickly comment on this?
Oh no, I think it's extremely clear, and for Danone now, it's the operating model. It is our operating model. It's in media, in digital, and in brand building in retail.com and online to offline. So I think we need to insist on the fact that this is ID based, and I think we need to insist on the fact that you have the feedback of offline also conversion, which is something which is not instinctive to people who have not gone through this process before. You know real time what's happening offline as you know what's happening online, which is the biggest shift in paradigm, because it was easy in a way to get the online conversion. Getting the offline conversion at the same time was absolutely, except on Unimarketing Alibaba, not possible. It is now completely possible.
Yeah, and
because of the clean room.
Absolutely. So we have a question by someone, for instance, who says, if you don't target cookie, what do you target? So to be very clear, we used in the case Hélène showed before a clean room technology. This one was developed by LiveRamp, which is an important player, obviously, in this space. And so people are being targeted at the individual level. Obviously, they are onboarded, which means that we find the cookies or the other actually identifiers of these people, and we then address them. But fundamentally, it all starts with a people level identity with a loyalty card at a retailer, for instance, which allows us and the brand, more importantly, to actually get access to the offline and online data, as you just said, Domitille. Thank you. Maybe a question we all have then is about the role of Gafas, because usually, as you know, and you know digital so well, Domitille, when there is a hot area in digital, the Gafas are either at the origin or coming very, very soon. So what kind of role do you see for them?
Well, they are central. As soon as they have an ID management which is relevant for conversion. I cannot say it more specifically than that. It means if you have no access as a brand through the Gafa ecosystem or the full path to purchase, you have still a challenge to measure correctly the investment you do. So we've seen all of them moving there. And they had to catch up during confinement time, which was quite funny. Yes, we do have conversion, so we had everyone pushing their solution of direct conversion, but that go beyond of that. It's really securing SaaS room. It's really securing the fact that the data are not anymore in a walled garden where you should blind, and I think no brand is accepting this anymore. So the one who are moving the fastest into respect of consumer ID, protection of consumer ID, while allowing a relevancy and an accuracy on what we can do, will be the winners from a brand perspective. They will always be the winners. Let's not fool ourselves. But there are ones who are better than others to deliver this type of safe, clean, ready for execution excellence. And I think execution excellence is respecting consumer, by the way, because you avoid polluting them. And you only speak with them when they are with a mental availability, which is there for you to for them to listen to you. So it's really that which is the obsession for us in Danone. Is we are very open to partnerships. We are very open to GBP. We have conditions now that are very much how can my brand respect to the maximum the consumer path to purchase and the moment where they are making the decision without polluting them otherwise. We see acceleration with the GAFA, specifically Amazon at the moment, which are very impressive.
Yeah,
on this
definitely.
transparency.
Yeah, and I think Amazon here needs to get a credit because they pushed the retailers to change dramatically their vision around their data environment. So thank you, Domitille. We have time for questions, which is wonderful because we had unbelievable insights already. So we have a lot of questions on the chat, I must say, Domitille. So thanks so much. Maybe we could start with the question about the clean rooms. Maybe for you, Luca, actually, and Domitille, you can complement. This question is: do you do this on the French market or for an international scope? Do you set up and operate the clean room market by market?
We can do a lot of things. So on our side, we do that on several markets, but you can have different configuration. Again, you can have a clean room per country. You can have a clean room for several countries and markets. It depends your objectives. It depends how you. It's a question of data governance at the end. So it depends who you share the data with and the rules. But it's very powerful because you can now decide how you want to manage this data, who can access it, and who can leverage it.
Thank you, Luca. Also, another question was, what's the tech behind the identity reconciliation if you do it between DV and Facebook and retailer data? Is it retailer-centric or brand-centric? Luca, you have a take on this?
Yeah, it's let's say it's ID centric. So how to say it another way? It's based on data onboarding, which is again central in this because it enables the reconciliation between online and offline. So first, that's the key principle, and then it's based on all the initiatives that enables to share this common ID. So it's a very hot topic in transition between the cookie world and a new world, and yeah, LiveRamp and many other partners are good at creating that, but it's not yet perfect, but very interesting what's happening there.
What I can add here is that the obsession of the CDO of this world is going to be the matching rate. So you're going to look the matching rate as oil on fire. If you are below a 30% matching rate, it means that the exercise of reconciliation will be useless. So you need on the data science part to really maximize to a point of I think with 40% we're going to be good, and the more the GAFA are going to clean their cookies and the DSP are going to clean their cookies, because this is the question here, is because cookies are really dirty in a data way, that the matching rate are low. But imagine we can realize sometimes that behind 10 cookies there is only one person. So if you work your frequency on cookie, it means that with a 3 frequency per week, which is a good campaign leverage, you end up having a person which is going to be targeting 30 times, but you still have an average of 3. So there is a lot of things at stake about this matching rate, because it's also a sanity check of the media landscape.
Absolutely.
And a comment on this, because it connects to the clean rooms. When the person asks, how to reconcile between brand and retailer. That's exactly the clean room. It's bringing the data together with a shared currency. We forget that in the ad tech industry, but it's about a shared currency to reconcile these different types of data.
Correct. A very interesting question also that we have here. Do you also look at overall business objectives like penetration and how retailer data works towards this to grow the brands rather than incremental sales only? How about this, Domitille?
Absolutely. So on CPG, on food and beverage, the name of the game is constant acquisition. And constant acquisition needs to be higher than brand leakage. So every single campaign is looking not only at the incremental sales lift, but in absolute on how many additional penetration point we gain versus before the campaign. But you can do it here because you have the net incrementality. If you don't have the additional consumers versus the one you are losing on a weekly basis, you cannot look at the penetration. You just look at the penetration figure when they arrive with Nielsen, which is far too late. So obviously, this is not only incremental, but you need the incremental to understand the overall penetration of your brand. Penetration is the name of the game. At the end of the day, those principles remains. It's marketing basics. The difficulty now is the how. It's easy to speak about penetration if you don't master the how to increase this penetration on brands which have already a huge basket pool. You are misunderstanding how much of a constant acquisition mechanic it is.
Absolutely. Very quickly, also, we have a question by Jeremy on how important is ad viewability and fraud for you? Is it a fight with your agencies?
It's so important that we have integrated ad science as a global partners. We have them on the phone almost twice a day. It's an obsession. They are partners in crime. They are almost part of the team. Because we are looking at viewability, obviously, and it's not a fight with the agency, because I think everybody understand that it's no need to look at anything, but if you don't have this KPI, respect it first. And again, I'm not targeting 100% viewability. We are targeting 80%, and it's already very healthy. Fraud is absolutely crucial for us. I remember that we have brands which are addressing food for babies. We have absolutely no mercy on this one. It's a no mercy business. So we have a whitelist which is actually smaller than many other competitors, which is putting the agency also at stretch, because having a correct reach when you have a whitelist which is reduced requires to be extremely good in the way you're buying. But yes, we have partners, and we have the best partner in the market so far to monitor that. It's a no mercy. There is no exception to the rule in Danone on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will maybe quickly answer a couple of additional questions. One, how do you manage unifying cold data from big retail stores? So again, it's really through the loyalty card and the data onboarding capacities that Luca mentioned. There was a question about incrementality. You mentioned so much also. Is the control group exposed to generic message or to no message? So this is a technical question. I can take it, and we will soon have a marketing reboot fully dedicated webinar, fully dedicated to incrementality. So I'll be glad to invite our audience here to look at this. Obviously, we do both. Sometimes we have what we call a PLS, or a message to the control group. Sometimes we don't, but in all cases, we measure what is measurable when it comes to incrementality, which is a full test with a full control, perfectly comparable. And maybe Domitille, to finish and ask you the last question. There was someone who says, thanks for the many insights. Can Domitille elaborate on the consumer promotion score she mentioned?
Net promotion score is based on survey and on panel. and it's already very good. You see every vertical digital brands are obsessed with their NPS. We are moving on consumer promotion score because we can now match those NPS, net promotion score, with also social listening and natural language processing of the conversation on the brands. Because it's not only a declarative exercise, there is also a lot of signals on the web that can be matched with the declarative data and give you a 360 perspective of how consumers are going to rate and speak about your brand. And most of the time, it's on food and beverage, on forums like influencer.com in the US, where people are going to speak about your brands, but you're not automatically tracking the discussion there. So we are scrolling everything, and we are comparing, and we have to compare it with the net promotion score. So that's becoming a consumer promotion score, which I feel more comfortable because I'm always a little bit cagey to look at only declarative data.
Great, Domitille, thank you. I would really like to thank you for this unbelievable quantity and quality of insights that you gave us this morning with this global perspective, with your view and your take on the tribes and the precision marketing and the approach to clean rooms. I think you said it. There was no bullshit in what you said, and this is so pleasant, I must say. So thank you so much. We are so proud to have a company like Danone leading the way. Really, I think in precision marketing and these brand retailer connections globally on digital and through digital. We couldn't have a better way to kick off this brand retailer series. So thank you again so much, Domitille. Our next speaker will be Etienne. Thank you, really. And our next speaker will be Etienne Drouard very shortly. A lot of things going on, obviously, on privacy, and he will speak with us this next Tuesday, the 23rd. And then right after, a week after, we will have Noureen, Global Head of CRM at L'Oréal Group. So again, fantastic webinars coming soon. Domitille, thank you so much. Have a great day. And
bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Hélène and
Bye.
Luca.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.